Welcome to a brand new segment that I like to call That Bloody Trailer. Here we'll be taking a look at the latest, greatest, coolest, and goriest horror movie trailers from all across the web. And boy, do we have a great first episode for you today. 2 brand new trailers for 2 epic horror movie remakes. Hey, I know what you're thinking. Horror movie remakes are always crap, right? Well, no. We're gonna give them the benefit of the doubt here. And we're gonna start with the trailer and gather what we can. So first I want to dig into the first official teaser trailer for Carrie. This is of course the 3rd adaptation of Stephen King's original novel by the same name. It stars Chloe Grace Moretz, also known as Hit Girl from Kick-Ass, and it is directed by Kimberly Peirce. Now this is clearly just a teaser trailer. It's very short. We get one single image, but there is some information that we can pick up from here after all. If you really take a good gander at the trailer and really listen closely, then you can pick up some very interesting details. We see the small town in ruins, stores on fire. It's a dark night. We know, of course, I think I can safely say without spoiling too much that this is probably right after the prom. We hear the voices of several town residents as the camera slowly pushes across the street. They claim it might be a conspiracy. They say there's something supernatural going on. But there are some lines in this trailer which I think are key. Among them we hear, "Her mother was the fanatic. I don't know how she lived with her." That's of course a very central theme to both the novel and the film. Her mother, here played by Julianne Moore, is the crazy religious fanatic, and Carrie takes all the abuse and suffers psychological and physical torture by her hand. So that's definitely intact, we know that. And it's going to be very interesting to see how Julianne Moore tackles this role. As the camera finally pushes in on Carrie, we hear someone say, there's one thing people tend to forget. She wasn't a monster, she was just a girl. And if you listen closely as she raises her head, you can hear her tormentors, her bullies laughing at her. So you can definitely tell this is going to be a fairly true adaptation. I don't know how much is going to be changed from the original novel, but I did read that they are updating this a little bit, so social networks and such might be used in the plague campaign against Carrie to kind of torment her a little bit. So I suppose there might be some cyberbullying going on here, and that might work. We'll see. Only makes sense, I suppose, that girls these days are texting each other and tweeting each other about ways to torment a poor girl. I do still have some reservations about Chloe as Carrie. I don't feel like she's quite the black sheep, like she's quite the nerdy outcast. She feels a little bit too sort of nice to play the role, I guess you might say. But I'm definitely gonna wait until we've seen the entire movie, and then you can make reservations on that. I hope she's gonna win us over, because this is a very, very different role from Hit Girl indeed. It seems that this is really an opportunity for Kimberly Peirce, a very talented director, to really go all out with this movie as well. I'm sure it's gonna be a very psychologically adept horror movie, but I also like that they've upped the stakes a little bit. These days you can really see Carrie ruin a whole small town and make it believable and visceral and powerful. That's one thing the classic Brian De Palma film had against it, is that the budget and the special effects were not quite up to par all the time, but the film was so well photographed and quite well acted as well, so that didn't matter too much in that one. But it's gonna be fun to see a new explosive take on Carrie, if you will. And I think Stephen King would be proud. Okay, but let's get to the good part, shall we? The juicy part. Leaked today from New York Comic Con was the first official footage from the Evil Dead remake. This is classic horror. Now we're talking big time. This is one of my most anticipated movies. I can't wait to see this one, and I have a lot to say about this, so let's get to it. First up, let's just talk a little bit about the movie. This is a remake of the original Evil Dead, the original classic movie, starring Bruce Campbell, directed by Sam Raimi, made on a very small budget. and a true horror movie classic. This is produced by Bruce Campbell himself, but he will not star. There is no reference to Ash in this movie whatsoever, so this has nothing to do with that character. It's got nothing to do with Evil Dead 2, and it's got absolutely nothing to do with Army of Darkness. Fede Alvarez is directing this one, and it seems that Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell are driving the final nail in the coffin with this one. They're starting from scratch with a new director. They're not involved directly in the project, and this is their way of saying there's not gonna be an Evil Dead 4. Sorry guys, but that's just the truth. That being said, there's been a first image released from the film. We'll take a look at that right now. Here we see a possessed girl in the cellar. Of course, very reminiscent of Shelley in the original movie. It's almost beat for beat the exact same. You can see the color tone is different, of course, and she's clearly possessed at this point. You can see her yellowing eyes there. She does not have the blanked out contact lens look that I really liked from the original. That's kind of a shame, I think. She looks more kind of like Reagan from The Exorcist, or something out of Exorcist the beginning. That's a bit of a shame, I think, but still looking pretty creepy overall. Can't wait to see more of these and hear their voices in particular. They had such creepy, demonic voices in the original. Anyway, let's get to the actual leaked footage. Starts off with a very blurry shot of just the cabin on the outside. Then they actually step into the cabin, and you can see they're kind of browsing around the cabin. She says, "My mother would have hated to see a cabin like this." So I guess they're making a joke as to the dilapidated state of this cabin. But that's nice though. It does look kind of slick. That's one thing that worries a lot of people. Like in the Friday the 13th remake, they were in these slick bungalows, like these brand new modern accommodations, and it wasn't like the old creepy cabin, you know what I mean? It does look like they're kind of trying to go for that creepy cabin look in this one, at least. It does look a bit more dilapidated and rustic, I guess you might say. So yeah, I am glad about that. So they quickly locate the cellar door. There's blood on it. They remark, "Is that blood?" Then they, stupid as they are, stupid teenagers, they open up the cellar door and they venture right into the dark cellar. We do get a quick glimpse of the cellar, and it's looking kind of like a little bit of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. It's got that same kind of meat hook feel. I don't know if I'm crazy about that, but we'll see. When we see more of it, we'll know, because the original cellar was really dark. It was like barely anything there. It was just totally pitch black. So there's quite a difference to it there. But they quickly locate the infamous Book of the Dead. There's a shotgun, and they begin clawing around in the Book of the Dead, and one of the girls warned them we shouldn't have touched anything in that cellar. And this is where things really kick up a notch, and this is where crazy things start happening. He opens up the book. This is quite a departure from the original, of course, and we can see in writing it says, "Don't say it, don't write it, don't hear it." So he's actually himself reciting the words, the Kandar words from the Book of the Dead. That means they don't find an old, I take it they don't find an old tape in this one that they sit down and listen to. And again, I suppose this is in keeping with updating the film a little bit. I don't know if teenagers these days would be totally convinced if you found an old spool tape with old incantations on it. So I think you see him actually reciting the words from the book that causes all the horrible things to happen. So a quick barrage of famous shots, very reminiscent of the original. He starts reading Kandar from the book, of course. We know what this is going to lead to. And we see the famous sort of grandfather clock as it strikes midnight. This is a big thing in the original film, of course. That old clock keeps sort of rewinding itself so that the gruesome night never ends. They're always trapped in that horrible nightmare. We also see what might just be the ending. Spoilerific. We see the famous sort of demon shot, really pushing through the forest very quickly, very reminiscent of the original movie. As the words go on and he keeps on reciting this, we push into the cabin and we get a quick glimpse of something horrible. See someone screaming in a reaction to something, and we see a girl possibly rising up from the mud. Don't know if she's possessed or not, but it's getting creepier. And then we see the door burst open and the girl standing there screaming at the top of her lungs. Perhaps this is the big moment where she kind of absorbs the demonic power, I guess. But it looks kind of cheesy to me. She's standing there screaming like crazy, and our friends are like, there's like hair blowing, there's like wind blowing in their hair and everything. It's very, very, very dramatic stuff. The book slams closed. We clearly see that there's no face on the book, but it does look bound in human skin, as the original book was. And she recites in a very dry line, "We're all gonna die here tonight." Then we see someone clearly shell-shocked, standing under the water of a shower, and she's just collapsing. She's been through something quite momentous here. What's interesting about the trailer at this point is we've seen the male character there recite. He's in this trailer quite a lot. We don't see a lot of Jane Levy. Jane Levy is actually the lead in this movie. She plays Mia. You may know her from the show Suburgatory. She's actually taken the lead away from Bruce Campbell, and there's a female lead in this one. And she comes up to the cabin with her friends as support because she's a drug addict, as they tell it, and she's there for rehab. She's basically going to lock herself in this cabin with the help of her nurse and her friends, and she's gonna sober up. So that's a very interesting approach to this movie. I think that can really give it some nice character depth that the original was lacking. The original, of course, is a very silly, sort of happy-go-lucky cabin in the woods kind of movie with these 5 teens going up to just drink booze and have fun, and they found the book and shit happens, you know. And he says, "I read from that book and I released something evil." And we do get a very, very quick shot of a guy standing near the lake. You can see that the whole lake is actually flooded. So there's nowhere they're going to get out of there. In the original, there was a sort of a suspension bridge. Not the most convincing bridge in the entire world, that had sort of bent up and they couldn't get over this chasm. But in this one, it seems the road is actually entirely flooded. He also looks, if there is any kind of Ash-looking character to this movie, it's definitely this guy. The way he looks is almost exactly like Ash in the original. He's got a blue shirt on, he's got black hair. So I think they might actually, even though they've said that there is no Ash in this one, they might actually be pulling the rug from underneath us, and maybe there will be kind of an Ash homage to this character. But anything goes in this one, and that's the interesting part. We don't know who's going to make it, we don't know who's really the lead character, but interestingly enough, which is typical Hollywood, I guess you might say, we see a lot of guys delivering dialogue and such, and we see a lot of females getting wounded and abused in this trailer. So there you go, that's pretty typical. Right after that, there's a very interesting shot that's very stylized and not reminiscent of anything in the original movie at all. There's a girl right outside the cabin, and she's looking up, and there's a drop of blood or something raining down upon her, and she catches it in her hand as she's looking up. Very spooky stuff, I guess. Very interesting to see what that will entail. If it's actually literally going to be raining down blood on them, that would be pretty cool, I think. Right after that, we see someone, probably possessed, a girl, crawling her way through the ground at another character. Perhaps she's lost her legs at this point, I don't know, but very, very spooky shot there. She's kind of crawling down. It's really like the classic demon, Living Dead thing. I don't know, but I think they might be. I think it might be more slow moving in this one. The Kandarian demons. In the original, they were kind of like stabbing people in the ankles with pencils and stuff like that. But I think in this one, they might actually be more malevolent and kind of like ghouls, I guess. But we'll see about that. But looks very cool. And then he opens the bathroom door and he turns on the light, and the light bulb goes out. And just as he does that, there's a very interesting shot. It's almost subliminal. You have to kind of go frame by frame to see it. But we see some people illuminated. We don't know if they're in the cabin, where they are, if they're demonic, if they're someone else, if they're just visitors. And it looks like there's actually a little boy among them. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting. So we don't know if there are actually going to be specters in this movie, like ghosts, if they're townspeople and it's sort of spreading, the evil is spreading, if they're aware, if it's an ancient evil, if there's a backstory going on. But all of that would be brand new to this movie, and that's very interesting, I think. See a lot of quick shots of people covered in blood, and then we get our first really gruesome image. He's looking down at a girl and she turns around. At this point she's clearly possessed. She's got those yellow red eyes, and she's actually carved up the side of her mouth with a rusty knife. Very nice, very spooky. This is where the trailer really starts to show promise. You can see clearly that this is a hard R-rated horror movie. This is not going to be Evil Dead 2. This is not going to be Army of Darkness. Because I think that's something that a lot of people tend to forget. The original Evil Dead was never supposed to be funny. It was supposed to be scary, frightening, shocking, bloody horror movie. And this is exactly what that is. It's also very interesting that they're actually going that route with the whole self-mutilation thing. Not only because it was kind of hinted in the original movie, I think it's also gonna tie into the plot pretty well. I mean, the whole theme about self-destructiveness and drugs, and there's actually a later shot which we'll talk about where her hand gets possessed and she can see kind of the evil in her hand. It's like she's there for rehab, and it's literally cutting the poison out of your body. So I think that's actually going to work pretty well. Not so subtle maybe, but that's just my theory about the thing. But yeah, great shot. And as she's on the bathroom floor, she's actually crawling towards the bearded guy. It actually looks like from the looks of the trailer, this bearded guy looks like the main character. I don't know, I just find that funny. It looks like he will encounter and see a lot of torture and carnage. But I suppose that's appropriate if he's the one that actually recites the words and causes all of this to happen. Right after this, we see also a brand new thing. A girl, I believe, is being lit on fire. Someone's actually lighting her on fire. She screams as she's engulfed in the flames. Very horrific, very powerful stuff, and that was never in the original at all. So we're seeing a lot of ways of trying to dispose the evil here. We're seeing sharp objects, we're seeing flames, we're seeing self-mutilation, we're seeing eventually chainsaws as well. And right after the burning shot, you see the girl with her hand is completely possessed and gnarly and messed up. Very reminiscent of Evil Dead 2, except it's played entirely straight, no humor here. She picks up this weak little almost turkey carver knife, and she actually starts sawing into her arm, and the blood just sprays everywhere. Very intense shot, this. But I do have one pet peeve about this. The blood, I know this is totally cliche and everything, but the blood looks way too ketchup red in that shot, according to me. It could have been a little bit darker, but alas, it looks like they're gonna have to endure some pretty horrendous stuff in this movie. And it's very reminiscent of the entire Evil Dead series, and very cool. A quick shot of a machete blade being stuck right in front of some character's face. Quick shots of glimpses of a demon, a possessed girl, and then she's running through the foggy woods. Very nice shot, that one, I think. Very eerie and evocative. You really feel like the woods are just kind of engulfing them all, and they're in a very supernatural place. So I'm glad they really went that route, at least. And then you've got what might be kind of the money shot for a lot of people. You got that guy, I believe it's the guy from the lake, who looks kind of like Ash, black hair, blue shirt, I believe, standing there with the chainsaw, firing up the chainsaw full speed, hacking at someone's body, and the blood is just spraying everywhere. This looks right out of the original Evil Dead, to my eyes. Very cool, and he's clearly not having a good day. Even more shots of the fire. We see the fire sort of spreading and almost overtaking the cabin, like it's completely out of control. We'll see if the actual whole cabin is going to burn down in this movie or what, but it's a brand new route, and it's going to be very interesting to see if the fire will have any effect on these evil demons here. And lastly, another famous trailer moment from the original movie that gets the audience rowdy. We see her out in the woods. She's entangled by the trees, and they're crawling up her leg. We know exactly what's going on here, of course. That's precisely what happened to Shelley in the original movie. It's known as the tree rape sequence, and surprisingly, it's very politically incorrect, and it's almost surprising that they actually managed to get this through today. So, tree huggers, beware. Bam, there's your title, Evil Dead. The audience goes nuts, but there's one final shot before it's over. Girl is in a cramped space with a demon right in her face, a possessed friend, and she just picks up a blade and just slowly starts sawing at her tongue. Like, there's, pretty intense, pretty gnarly stuff. This movie looks like it's gonna be a really intense throwback. It looks like it might have enough to stand on its own 2 feet, but just throw enough nods at the audience that this is still the Evil Dead, and I'm really excited to see this one. But what I'm really excited about this one is that it's a hard R, gory, bloody, serious horror movie. And even though we've got movies like Cabin in the Woods recently that sort of mocked and made fun of movies exactly like The Evil Dead, I think this is gonna be pretty intense. Because that's one thing I've always wondered about. You know, our generation always saw The Evil Dead as kind of a funny, low-budget movie. It really can't be helped because, the effects are not the best. The budget is very low, but it was still never intended as that. It was intended as a serious horror movie, and people tend to forget that, I think. So I'm really glad that we're seeing a dark, serious, really bloody Evil Dead movie, and I can't wait to watch this one. So this has been That Bloody Trailer. Thank you for watching the first episode. Whenever a new cool horror trailer pops up, I will be checking that out here as well. Also, be sure to check out the Texas Chainsaw 3D trailer that came out a while ago. That might also be interesting. I'm kind of cautiously looking forward to that one. So yeah, thank you guys for listening, and I will see you soon. Have a great October and a very happy Halloween. Bye.